Hey everyone who's joining in. T, Shamia. Hey Nina. Hey Dion. Hey Maurice. Candace. Hey everyone. Thank y'all for joining, and we'll start at 9:01. If you have not already left your email address, so hey everyone, hey Shamia, I am Dr. Tar, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have you all join in tonight. I think the conversation is going to be wonderful. I've been playing around with FB Live, and so I hope to have some interactive pieces in there too. Um, hey Nina, if you have not already joined our email list, please feel free to leave your email address in the comments or send me an inbox with your email address. We are planning our spring and summer calendar of events where all the lives that we do on Facebook are very condensed versions of larger sessions that we do that really engage the audience and have interactive components that we would love for you all to be a part of, as well as upcoming other events that we're doing within the DMV area too. So again, if you haven't left your email address for us, please feel free to do so in the comments or send me an inbox. So as we get ready to get started, I just want to always say, hey everyone, and thank you all so much for tuning in this evening. I think for what will be hopefully an insightful and wonderful conversation. We're going to be talking about family traditions, and I hope that you all saw the flyer that we posted. I was on social media and I saw a flyer talking about toxic relationship patterns. And so with that, one of the things that came up is understanding, or the need for us to understand, which family traditions we want to keep and which ones with just being we want to be more mindful of to leave behind. And so I think a lot of times when we become adults, we just take for granted that we're going to live and create and have these lifestyles that we want literally just because we've turned 18, 21, 25, gotten married, had kids, gotten a car, gotten a house, gotten a job. And, realistically, life doesn't work that way. When we think about relationship patterns, from the relationships that we have with ourselves to the relationships that we have with our friends to the relationships we have with our partners and eventually, our children, all of them can literally be stemmed back to what we experienced ourselves. And so when we think about this, one of the things that we have to be mindful of is that if we're not careful and if we're not making a conscious decision, a lot of our behaviors, a lot of our thoughts, and a lot of our patterns that have been handed down to us continue into our other relationships. And I think that it's important to understand that so many of these traditions, that especially those traditions that we want to let go of, really come from communication styles and communication patterns. How we've learned to express our emotions to other people, which emotions we've learned, we can express, a lot of times. And I want us to kind of just think back to our own childhood. No worry, if you're just tuning in, I'm just getting started, so you're fine. But thinking back to our own childhood, understanding that, a lot of times as children, only one person gets to think, feel, behave, say something, and that's usually the person who's bigger, stronger, and hopefully wiser. And if I'm not allowed to express myself, or if I'm not taught that I can express myself, or if competition is something that's used as a motivating factor versus, my own ability, then what do I do with those emotions? What do I do with those thoughts? And so one of the things that we start to see is that people either keep them inside, so I learn to internalize them. And what happens is that we really start to create what is called like this internal dialogue or this internal narrative about who we are, what our place is in the world, and also what our relation is with other people. Meaning that, do I think that I'm a person who can even ask for help? How many of us, and you can put a thumbs up, have ever felt like, I'm the person that everyone comes to, but if I have an issue, there's no one that is going to assist me. Like I have to be that rock for everyone else. There's no one that can come to me. A lot of times, again, that comes from relationship patterns that have been communicated to us. Or, on the flip side, how many of us have ever felt like I'm looking for someone, in a relationship or with a partner, they have to know all of my needs before I even say it. And if they don't know my needs, I'm going to get upset. Or, we have these unrealistic expectations that we place on ourselves, we place on our partners, we place on our children, right? I want someone else to heal me, even when I'm not willing to heal myself. And so the purpose of tonight's discussion, I see a lot of thumbs up, and I want this, even though we're all virtual, I want this to be a safe space. And because, the only way that we actually get to the healing process is first by recognizing and acknowledging and reflecting on ourselves in order to be the best that we can be. And so I wanted to start easy. And I'm going to ask you all a question. I want you all to put it in the comments. When we think about things that have shaped us for the better, things that I am consciously making a decision to carry over into subsequent relationships, whether they are, relationships with my partner, relationships with my friends, relationships with my children. What things have I experienced? What traditions, what rituals, what things do I want to continue? Because we want to always start there. And we'll get to that more as we get towards the end of the live, in the importance of creating our own narrative or our own dialogue. We always want to start with a foundation that's rooted and grounded in our strengths, because we can't change from a sense of lack, right? There's a saying that I've always had that says, you can't get to abundance from a mindset of lack. So where are we starting off? Like, what strengths are we bringing into our relationships with ourselves, with others, with ourselves and with others, whether it's our partner, whether it's our children? I'm going to look at the comments. I feel like I'm a YouTuber. My daughter would be so proud. Tell me in the comments. As you all think about that too, I want us to also reflect too, if there was one thing that I could give up, if there was one thing that I can change as it relates to how I deal with myself, how I deal with my friends, my family, my partner, my children, what would that thing be? Christina, you say you're a good listener, and you really are. That ability to listen, that ability to be that rock. Melinda, the strength, the question is, what strengths are we bringing into our relationships? What things do we want to keep? So the theme of tonight is to keep or to not, to keep or not to keep. And so what things do we want to keep? What things do I want to hold on to? I'm going to write it in the comments. Christina, I'm a good motivator. Candace, holidays are always about family, creating spaces that are beautiful and filled with joy. Yes, and the food. Amen and hallelujah. Thank you, Shamia, for typing that for me. So what is one thing I want to give up? So what thing is no longer serving me? And this one, a lot of times, I want us to think about a little bit harder, because a lot of times when we think about things that we want to give up, that's usually where we start to see resistance. And the reason for that is because when we think about traditions or when we think about rituals, I want to break that down. So a tradition or ritual really comes from a belief. Love and affection. Yes, Maurice, I love that. The belief, Candace, too, that we have to stick together. So rituals and traditions come from beliefs. Now, what we're going to do with that is how then do we break down our belief system? And what we have to define what beliefs are. And if we were to break down beliefs, what a belief is truly, in the simplest form, is a thought that you've continued to think. That's it, right? A thought that you think over and over and over and over again literally becomes a belief. And so when we think about what is one thing that I'm willing to give up or that I would want to give up, one of the things that we are challenging with even just acknowledging is that I have to be willing to change my belief about this behavior. And so, Christina, thank you for your honesty about, defensiveness. I want to give up defensiveness. I want to, give up feeling like I'm being attacked if someone is presenting something to me, and to create an open dialogue or a safe space for both of us to have a platform. And so when we think about that, one of the things that we want to be mindful of is understanding how this belief is no longer serving us, and also acknowledging too. So this is that twofold part. If you've been to the other FB Lives, you know that and yet, right? So it's no longer serving us, and yet it has served us well up until this point, right? So my defensiveness, my ability to cut the conversation off or cut people off may have served me. Nina, everyone's problem is mine, right? That again, that mindset that I have to be the rock for everyone else. But when I do that, what I'm also saying outwardly to other people is that I don't need you to be there for me, right? So I can help you, but when I'm in need of assistance, I'm not expecting, and I'm not going to be able to depend on someone to help me. And so I'm leaving myself almost like in this silo or on this island where I have to figure it out, when in reality, I need all of the support I can get to the next phase. And so when we think about challenging or changing some of these beliefs, one of the things that we're going to start with for today is, how then do we begin to adapt a new mindset and working through that anxiety? Because when we think about beliefs, or when we think about these traditions, one of the things that we also have to understand is that these traditions literally start to create my reality, right? So I'm known, and Christina, I'm going to use you and Nina's examples. I'm known as being the defensive one, right? I'm known as being the one that, you know what, don't go to her. She's going to get this way. And that has served me because it helps me to avoid conversations that I may not necessarily want to engage in. It helps me to avoid confrontation if I'm a person that doesn't like confrontation. With Nina, I'm just using you all as an example, but with your example that you gave, if I'm always there for everyone else, that feeds me, right? That helps me feel connected to people. That helps me be the problem solver. And also that helps me be the perfect one. So I don't have to get in power struggles with you. When I've created a relationship where the relationship is dependent on me solving your problems, I don't have to be anything other than perfect. And so, you're looking to me for advice, you're looking to me for guidance. But then the reality of it is, when I make a mistake, a lot of times what we see is that I'm the one that is beating myself up. So that mindset or that belief becomes very harsh, becomes very critical, and becomes very judgmental, because I put myself on this unrealistic expectation having pedestal where I'm going to serve everyone else, even if it's at my own expense, even if it's at the expense of my health, even if it's at the expense of my relationships, in order to meet the needs of everybody else. When we think about these family traditions or other traditions or patterns that, we're continuing or that we're carrying on, when we think about that, one of the things that I want to say is that our mindset as it relates to change, as it relates to, I'm willing to give this up, or I'm willing to see this differently. That's really the goal for this whole session. Am I willing to see this differently? Am I willing to adopt another viewpoint? Our mindset is going to trump everything. A lot of times we think that we can effort our way to change, right? So I just got to get up and do it. I'm just going to make this change. We're in February. How many of us have held fast to our New Year's resolutions? I don't even remember what mine was. I hope it wasn't to lose weight, because I failed miserably already, but whatever. But when we think about our mindset, a lot of times we think, if I behave, then it automatically is going to yield me this result. And now that may be true as far as being able to check a box, but our emotional or our internal well-being is not going to change. I can change my behavior, but if I haven't checked my internal dialogue, that internal narrative that I've created or that I've been telling myself, I'm still going to be self-doubting. I'm still going to be criticizing. I'm still going to be skeptical of my own ability. And what I'm running the risk for is creating anxiety, even more anxiety with this change. And so what does that mean? That means that, when we think about changing our thinking, it really has to be a process where we identify something that we want to try to do. Now I'm going to break down, I remember going on this meditation retreat, and we had to sit in silence. And the woman who was leading the retreat literally broke down the word try. And it's something that I use in almost every training, in different sessions. But she has defined try, or try has been defined in different cultures as seek, find, hold, and remain. I'm going to write that in the comments. So to try means that I'm going to seek something out, I'm going to find it, then once I find it, I'm going to hold to that thought. So I'm going to look for evidence that supports that thought that allows me to remain there. And I want us to see that in both traditions that we want to keep and also mindsets that we want to let go. When I really like, so by show of likes, how many of us have ever really liked somebody or been in love before? Hopefully everybody. If you haven't, put it on your New Year's resolution for 2020. It's a great feeling. You know, how many of us have ever really liked someone or ever been in love before? So I want you to think about that new dating field, right? We are trying to find everything that we can seek, find, hold, and remain. Thanks, Shamia. We're trying to find everything we can that creates this picture of this person being this wonderful human being, that creates this picture of this person being supportive, that creates this picture of them being in whatever light we want them to be in, right? So we seek something, right? I'm going to seek ways to look at you. I'm going to seek ways to think about you. Once I seek that, I'm going to find it. And then I'm going to find supporting evidence. Oh, I remember when they did this. I remember when he did this. I remember when she did this. And once I'm holding it, I'm going to remain there. Now let's flip it to the opposite side. If I've grown up with communication styles that have taught me that, you know, don't depend on anybody, you know, you can't trust people, or depend on everybody, you know, you are not competent enough to get things done. The same method holds true, right? I'm going to seek evidence that people aren't trustworthy, or that I'm the only one that's going to solve problems. I'm literally going to seek relationships where I'm always the problem solver, or where I'm always the listener, or where I'm always in a position to get defensive, right? So I'm going to seek that out. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find people, because like attracts like, right? I'm going to find other people who have other similar relationship patterns, and we're going to be drawn together. And then situations are going to be presented where I can hold that behavioral thought, right? So think about relationships that you've been in. How many times have we ever gotten into a conversation with someone and we started out with, you didn't wash the dishes, but we end with what you didn't do 6 years ago, right? So you didn't wash the dishes today, and you didn't wash the dishes last February 2013 either, right? So I'm looking for evidence to keep me insecure. I'm looking for evidence to keep me doubting. I'm looking for evidence to keep me critical. And so thanks, Patrice, for adding that last piece. And so when we think about that, one of the things that we have to be willing to do in order to change our mindset is that we have to be willing to try to literally be transparent, and then write that mindset out. And so when we think about moving forward, one of the things that has to happen is that this anxiety that sometimes can come by the changing of family traditions, by the changing of, you know, I'm deciding, or I'm making a conscious decision that I don't want to carry this anymore, right? The power that comes with that, the power that comes with, I'm going to let this end with me, means that at the same time, we have to acknowledge what it is. We can't just say, you know, I'm not going to do this anymore. We literally have to, sometimes you literally have to write this out. I'm willing to see this differently, and write out what that limiting belief is, write out what that limiting tradition is, write out what that limiting behavior pattern is. I'm willing to do this differently. And the reason for that is that from a biological perspective, our body doesn't see much of a difference between feeling anxious and feeling excited. So I want you to think about your favorite entertainer, right? So you just won tickets to see Beyonce. You just won tickets to see, I don't know, Celine Dion, whoever you love. You just won tickets. How would your body respond, right? You would probably start moving around. You would probably start shaking. You may scream. You may start jumping around, right? I'm excited. Well, think about how your body responds to anxiety the same way. So, you know, I'm moving around, I'm fidgeting. What is the difference between anxiety and excitement? Literally, it's our thought process. You know, when I'm excited, I'm shaking, I'm jumping up and down, I'm jittery, I can't sleep, I can't eat, I'm doing this. But my mind, my thought process is one where I still feel safe, I still feel connected, and I still feel in control. And so when we think about that as far as anxiety, and sometimes excitement can go a little bit too far and it creates anxiety, right? I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited about this. And then, whoa, now I'm anxious. Now I'm worrying. Now I'm wondering, what is this? What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? Maurice, I feel like I should bill your insurance company too. Thank you. And so, you know, when we think about the difference between excitement and anxiety, it really comes down to our thought process. And so when we think about changing traditions, when we think about changing rituals, one of the goals, or one of the main goals, is how do I get ahead of this? Because one of the things that we know is that a lot of times, if we've broken down traditions to rituals, and rituals to beliefs, and beliefs to thoughts, a lot of times we're not even aware of those thoughts until I'm at month 12 and we're only, again, in a 5-minute conversation, but I'm going out to what you won't do and what you won't ever do and what you won't ever be. And so when we think about changing our mindset, we really want to come to a place of where I can be in the present moment. And so that happens only when I'm able to connect with myself and say, I'm willing to think differently about this. There's that thought again. And one of the biggest things that we can tell ourselves is, one, I don't have to think that. When we think about true change comes from giving ourselves permission to see, one, ourselves differently, and then two, to create a different narrative. And so when we think about that, what we're really talking about is how then in this process do we begin to trust our own transparency. And so when we understand that, what that means is the difference between, a lot of these traditions that were handed down to us, or rituals that were handed down to us, or behaviors or thought patterns that were handed down to us in the name of love. And so one of the things that I always tell people is I never debate love, right? Because love is very debatable. You love me if you do this. You love me if you don't love me, I'm sorry, if you didn't do this, right? And so what I want us to start to think about is these traditions that were often handed down in the name of good intentions, in the name of, I'm trying to make you a better person. I'm trying to, prepare you for something. I'm trying to strengthen you. I'm trying to do something else, fine. We have to start asking ourselves, was it done in a way that was healthy for me to grow? And is it helpful for me now? Is it serving me now? And if it is not, if I can clearly say, because healthy isn't something that we can debate as easily, right? Love is debatable. Whether or not this was healthy for me is pretty clear and pretty straightforward. And so when we think about that, what that then allows us to do is communicate with ourselves before we communicate with anybody else. Right? So a lot of times when we decide, you know what, I'm going to change this, I'm going to stop this, I'm going to start this, we feel the need, or we feel the urge to make a public declaration, right? And so, Maurice, I'm going to come back to your comment because I think that's a great comment. But what we're really saying, or what I really want us to focus on, is that the first person that change impacts is us, right? And so a lot of times when we feel the need to make this public declaration, we're looking for someone to shoot us down and give us permission to stay the same. And we don't want that. We want someone who's going to challenge us to change. And that person has to be us ourselves. Again, mindset is going to trump everything when we think about letting go of what Maurice has called generations of baggage, or generations of well-intentions, right? Because I got to make that baggage mean something. Because again, I can't go, when we think about true change, or when we think about the true healing process, I have to, in some kind of way, shape, or form, I have to make sense of this. And so when we think about my change or my healing, one of the things that I want us to walk away from this session is that my healing is my responsibility. Whether or not I get an apology, whether or not I get an explanation, whether or not I get permission, whether or not I get approval, doesn't matter, right? Those things are all bonuses. I've worked with people, and this person apologized and I'm still angry, and so a lot of times we think that our healing is dependent, or our ability to change or stop things is dependent on someone else giving us permission or approval. And that's just so untrue. And when we're able to really come into concert with ourselves and give ourselves permission to say, this happened, it happened as a result of this. It happened, with people wanting to prepare me for this, or it happened because people didn't have a way to communicate, or it happened because people thought this, whatever the reason is irrelevant, right? Because sometimes when we get too deep into reasons, they just take us down a rabbit hole that we can't get out of, right? So I don't want us to stay there too long because, we'll go back and back and back. We'll go back and I'm going to go back to Maurice's point, generations, and we'll still find a reason why people participate in unhealthy behaviors. Our healing is always going to be in the present moment. When I'm looking in the past, that literally just serves as, a marker for me. When I'm looking in the future, that serves as a marker for me, but my healing can only occur in the present. And so when we think about the change process, what we're giving ourselves permission to change is our story. I'm giving myself permission to tell a new narrative. And I have to be willing to start that narrative with literally the phrase, I am deserving and I am worthy of the life that I desire, right? I have to be deserving, or my children are deserving and worthy of the life that I want them to have, or my relationship is deserving and worthy of the life that, or of the pattern or the relationship style that I aspire to have. Because so much of our mindset, especially when we talk about generations of baggage, or when we talk about beliefs or rituals that no longer serve us, literally can be traced down to feeling unworthy, can literally be traced down to feeling like I don't deserve this, which is why we have so much self-sabotage, right? So when we think about self-sabotage, one of the things that I jokingly seriously say is, we have all of these classes for anger management, right? Oh, I need an anger management class. So I need this. No, a lot of times what we need is joy management classes. So many of us feel guilty when we start to have feelings of joy, or when we start to see pieces of the puzzle start to fall together, or when we start to have, a smoother ride with our partner, or a smoother ride with our children, that we literally begin to self-sabotage, right? I wonder why they're acting like this, or I wonder why they're being nice to me, or I wonder why they're trying to, change. Even though I've been begging for change for the past 5 years, now that you're starting to do it, I'm giving you the side eye, right? I'm still creating that chaos that I've been so used to. And so when we think about giving ourselves permission, it literally starts with the narrative that I am deserving and that I'm worthy. And Christina, you just hit the head on the nail. That chaos can be the norm. And so when chaos becomes the norm, again, that right? I have sought, I have found, I have held, and I have remained in a place that has taught me that my worth or my deservedness comes in a relationship or an environment where chaos is a norm. And so in order to do this, in order to change, one of the things, or one of the places where we want to start is easy, right? I always say I want to start the easiest place possible. A lot of times when we think about traditions, these to keep or not to keep, or relationship patterns, or relationship conversations that we're having, we oftentimes, bite off more than we can chew. So, I'm going to start with the hardest thing first. I'm going to, and I always give nutrition, because I think that's a topic that everyone can relate to. I've been eating this way for the past 20 years, but tomorrow I'm going to drink cabbage juice and eat carrots and be perfectly fine. Like, okay, you can try. I mean, some people may, but me, I'll eat it by 9 o'clock and then still be ordering a cheesesteak, by lunchtime. So, if it works for you, great. However, for a lot of people, change works when it's small, when it's incremental, and when it's things that can give me back the ammunition that I need, and really the motivation that I need to continue to move forward, right? And so when we think about changing our narrative, sometimes it's really, I'm willing to see this differently. Sometimes it's really, the goal of, I have the permission to feel however it is I want to feel. A lot of times when we understand that a lot of our relationship patterns or our behavioral patterns come from our childhood, things that we were experienced to. Again, I love Maurice's statement about generations of baggage. We've learned to shut down ourselves to our emotional experience, right? So no one has to shut my emotions down. I shut them down myself. And so in order to change that, one of the things that I often recommend to people is something that we use, and some of you who are in the mental health field may use it too, but really something called I feel statements. I feel, right? And we started with ourselves. We've been taught that we started with other people, but we started with ourselves. I want to write that. And so when we think about I feel statements, it literally is I feel, and then we insert an emotion when I do an action. Because a lot of us have lost that connection with our own emotional awareness, right? So, I feel fine. You know, the standard greeting that we have in our society is, how are you doing? Good, fine. Well, those are not even emotions, you know. And so when we think about this, when we think about our owning our own emotional connection to ourselves, it has to have that acknowledgement that I'm allowed to feel whatever emotion it is I'm feeling in this moment. I don't have to feel bad about that, right? So we've been trained to feel guilty when we feel good. You know, when I feel happy, oh, I'm too happy. Let me not be too happy. And then we've been trained to feel guilty when we feel sad. I feel sad. I shouldn't feel sad. I'm gonna feel guilty about that, right? And so part of the process or part of the work is, I'm going to allow myself, right? I'm going to give myself permission to feel whatever it is that I feel when this happens, because I have to check in with myself. I have to unlearn. I have to lay sometimes a new foundation. You know, a lot of times when we think about thoughts or thought patterns that have been passed down to us, you know, a lot of it, we get it honestly. Oh, well, my mom thought this way, or my family thinks this way, or my partner thinks this way, or this person thinks this way. And then we think that we can start to challenge that thinking. And sometimes we can, and it's great, but sometimes we can't. Like, I just have to think a totally different thought. And so that's fine too. And so I'm giving myself permission to feel something that I've never experienced before. And so again, using that, I feel happy when I allow myself to take a nap. That's it. I don't have to feel guilty about it. Oh, I didn't do this. Or, oh, I didn't do this. Or, no, oh, I was so tired, and feel like we have to justify self-care, right? Or I feel upset when I, you know, don't let myself take a nap. Or I feel like I'm more connected to my children when I'm nicer to myself. You know, I'm more connected to my partner when I take time to be nice to myself. I feel more independent when I'm able to meet my own needs, right? And so giving ourselves those permissions to start to use these I feel statements on ourselves first. And then two, what that then does is that really works to create a different viewpoint on how, again, how we see ourselves, and acknowledging then, as I move forward in my relationships, these are things that I possibly want to do differently. These are things that I want to maintain. And these are things that I want to start on my own. I think one of the beautiful things that we have as adults is that we have the opportunity to really start new traditions. And especially as it relates to our own emotional and mental well-being. You know, we are in a society now where mental and emotional health is, again, getting the attention that it deserves. But 20, 35 years ago, you know, 5 years ago, it was not. And so when we think about literally changing and unpacking generational baggage, that's not going to happen, you know, overnight. It can, but it really is going to take an intense and an intentional focus on my well-being. I always have to be willing to reach for a better feeling thought, meaning that, you know, even for myself, when we think about doing things differently, when we think about changing traditions, my goal for myself then really becomes twofold: options and resources. I've been doing it this way. Here's another option. And in order to maintain this option, here's a resource. And so, you know, a lot of times people think about change as, you know, well, I'm going to cut this off, I'm going to cut this off, I'm going to cut this off, I'm going to cut this person off. And, you know, you turn around and there's no one left in your circle. And, you know, again, if that's what works for you, that's fine. However, one of the things that I want to challenge us on is, you know, I want to do this differently. Here's an option. Here's a resource. What can I add to myself? You know, we think about change and changing, again, changing our mindset, changing traditions, letting go of things that no longer serve us. Sometimes we cut so many things off that we literally feel depleted, and we're back in the mindset that there's no one out there to support me. And it kind of goes against the whole feeling and the whole movement that we're trying to create. And so one of the things that I want to challenge us to do is, as we're working to change and let go of things or add new things to our life, understanding what resources I need in order to make this change sustainable. That's because that's the goal, right? I want to create a new story. I want to create a new narrative for myself and my partner, for my children, you know, for generations to come. I want to understand that, okay, when someone does something that I don't agree with, I don't have to take responsibility for it. You know, I don't have to become defensive about it. I don't have to become someone else's savior. And in order for me to do that, who's going to help me to be accountable to myself? Who's going to help me to still have compassion, when I make mistakes? Who's going to help me to still be mindful of what it is that I need or what it is that I feel in the moment? Because that, again, is where true change comes from. And so when we think about that, one of the things that we want to take away is when we think about our permission, we want to understand, in order for me to change, what is it that I need? And first, understand, let me back up. What is it that I want to change? What is it that I'm willing to see differently? And so when we understand that, I then can literally start to write out, I'm willing to see this differently, right? So if I feel that, when someone has a problem, I have to be their only resource. Am I willing to write down on a sheet of paper, I'm willing to provide assistance, but I'm willing to back away? Or I'm willing to understand that people can solve their problems too, right? I don't have to be the solver. I don't have to be the fix-it for everyone else. And, when we think about that, and Pam, I love your comment, change is an addition. Yes, we don't want to see change as depletion, because again, when we see change as a depletion, it creates anxiety versus excitement. And the reality of it is, again, is that I can be excited about this. And so when we understand that, one of the things that also does is that, and this is probably the most important thing behind mindset, is that when I'm able to see change as an addition, when I'm able to see change as something exciting to look forward to, like, wow, something else to get in alignment about, something else, to connect with people about, something else to further my own emotional well-being about, let me try all these different things that add and aid in my healing and find out which ones work best for me. What I'm also doing, twofold, that I'm not even aware of, is that I'm giving myself permission to make mistakes along the way, because I'm going to see those mistakes as clarifying moments. And that's critical to the change process, right? Because a lot of times when we think about who we are or who we've been taught to be, whether it's from society, whether it's from our own parents, whether it's from, different groups that we've been involved in, I have oftentimes been given an identity. And what we do as an adult is try to maintain the pressure to conform to that, right? And when we think about giving ourselves permission to change, or giving ourselves permission to change traditions or create new traditions, what we're really saying is, I'm giving myself permission to gain clarity and insight on the things that are important to me, on the things that I feel connected to, on the things that I thought I felt connected to but no longer need to feel connected to, and on things that I'm willing to open myself up to experience. And when we are able to do that, we start to see major shifts that occur in these small incremental patterns, so that 60, 90 days, 120 days out, we're looking back over our path and saying, wow, like, I thought it was going to have to be, this hard, fast rule or this hard, fast thing. And I'm saying I've been able to make change, and I've been able to incorporate self-care along the way, which is essential for our sustained growth. Because when we think about change, again, the first person that change impacts is us. But the second person that change impacts is everyone around us. And if I am, when we think about traditional change, so if we're talking about change as it relates to parenting, right? So if my kids see me being hard on myself, I haven't done a good job of implementing or sustaining a change that makes them want to change either, right? And so, because children model behavior. So if they see me beating up on myself, or, oh, I didn't do this right, or, getting frustrated with myself, and, the people that we're closest to, they know our emotional outlets or our emotional expression sometimes even better than we do, right? So I'm frustrated with myself. Well, guess who's also going to feel that frustration? My children. And so now they're frustrated because I'm frustrated, and now no one is sitting in a place, and I'm doing this all in the name of change, or all because I want to do things differently. And I haven't even started to implement it with myself in a way I'm able to be compassionate with myself. And so when we think about this, we want to maintain our ability to have compassion, honesty, and reflection and accountability for ourselves. Again, we want to try, seek, hold, find, and remain. Seek, find, hold, and remain, so that, again, we're able to maintain this for a longer period of time. And so as we get ready to leave, I thought I had some interactive stuff. I have no idea where it went, but I want us to really start to put in the comments, what is something that I'm willing to try to do differently for myself? What is something that I'm willing to try to either let go of, or I'm willing to try to add to my life for my own benefit first, and then understanding that when it benefits me, it then will benefit other people. And I'm going to honor that. Like, I'm not going to feel bad about that. I'm going to feel excited about it versus anxious or guilty about it too. So I want you to write that in the comments, because what I want us to do towards the end is give ourselves the permission to kind of check in within 3 to 5 days. When we think about change or changing family traditions or changing family patterns, one of the things that people say is, that 21-day rule. And I want to break that down to 3 to 5 days. Today is Thursday. What can I commit to until Sunday, right? Until Sunday, I'm willing to try to do these things. I'm giving myself permission to create this narrative or to add this addition to my life too. And so, acknowledging that, whether you want to write it in the comment, if you have a notebook or a journal, write that in there, and, check back in. I want to hear your thoughts. Check back in with me, because I think this is so important about our own healing process, and understanding that in order to heal, we have to feel worthy, and I have to feel that, again, I can't get to abundance from a sense of lack. I have to feel that I'm worthy and deserving of the abundance that I want in whatever shape or form. That's why when we talk about relationships, parenting, partnering, jobs, friends, they're all different types of relationships, but all are impacted with the most important relationship, or impacted by the most important relationship, which is the relationship I have to myself. And so, Nina, I'm willing to try to stop stressing over everything. So again, I'm going to use you as an example. Thanks for saying that. So what does that look like? That means that I'm willing to look for satisfaction, right? So one of the things that is the opposite of anxiety is satisfaction. So anxiety causes a sense of reactivity, right? A reaction. I have to react to this event. I have to react to this event. I have to react to this event. Anxiety, again, is future tense. Satisfaction is present tense. So literally, what can I find satisfaction about in this moment? And sometimes we look at conditional things, right? So I look at, okay, satisfaction of my house, satisfaction because I got a job. And those are great. Those are all conditional things. But a lot of times too, again, that satisfaction can lead to more anxiety. What can I find satisfaction in, literally, that has nothing to do with me? So for me, I find satisfaction in sunsets, sunrises, right? I know whether or not, in my entire life, I have yet cause a sunrise or a sunset, yet they bring me so much satisfaction. And so when we think about stressing over anything, we try to do a hard stop, and you can, right? So the thought process, that mindset, literally giving myself permission, I don't have to solve this problem right now, or I don't have to think about this right now. But then I don't want to take that away from you without giving you something else, right? I don't want to take away a skill without giving you a skill, because anxiety is a skill. People who are anxious, that is a skill. My child is in kindergarten. I'm already anxious about what happens to them when they get into 12th grade. And so if I'm going to change that skill, what can I put in the place of it? I don't have to think about this right now. I'm willing to think about this. This thing brings me peace. This thing brings me satisfaction. This thing gives me the permission to focus on something that brings me joy. Patrice, I'm willing to have crucial conversations because they're necessary. And so with those crucial conversations, one of the things that I always tell people is, what is the outcome that I'm looking for? And if I don't get it, how can I still ensure that I'm okay? Right? How do I still ensure that I'm okay, even if I don't get the outcome that I'm expecting from someone else? Because the reality of it is that they don't have to give it to me. Right? And so these conversations are critical for me, and I want to own that. And at the same time, and yet, I want to let you off the hook if you don't agree. And so understanding that my healing, again, if I'm tying my healing into someone's response to these critical conversations, then I'm not ready for the conversation. My healing is my responsibility. And so my healing is already going to happen before the conversation happens. The conversation happens just as an added on bonus to my healing that I'm already deserving and worthy of. Candace, I'm willing to put myself first without feeling guilty. Nina, you're absolutely right. Anxiety is very real, very, very real. The physical impacts, the emotional impacts, very, very real. And so there are things that you can do to bring you in the moment. When we think about not feeling guilty, again, it goes back to that mindset. Mindset trumps everything. And that's similar to what Annie is saying about the stress. Mindset trumps everything. I'm willing to feel worthy of this. And if I can't get to worthiness, if I feel some, resistance, that if I feel like, I'm worthy of this $15 million house, and that brings up resistance, and I don't want to go there, right? I'm worthy of a nap. I'm worthy of watching my favorite television show. I'm worthy of having a conversation with someone that, adds joy to my life. Not that makes me feel good, but that adds joy to my life, right? I'm willing to do this. And, Christina's saying, too, stopping ourselves in a spiral. When I start to notice, and I think that's a great point, when I start to notice that I'm going down that rabbit hole, and you can write this in your journal too, what are things that I can say to myself? Again, that show that try. I can see something else, that I can find it and I can hold there. What is easiest for me to hold, and where is it easiest for me to remain that helps me come out? Now, the first part of that with mindset is, am I willing to feel different? And when we think about anxiety, when we think about depression, times those things become such a part of our identity, or those feelings become such a part of our identity that it's hard to let go of, right? So, sometimes we'll wake up and I'm feeling fine, and then I'm starting to look for something to get anxious about, or I'm starting to look for something to get worried about, or I'm starting to look for something to argue over, right? Because I'm so conditioned to feeling this way. And so when we think about stopping ourselves in a spiral, it literally is, when I get out of bed, before I start to focus on anything else, let me check in with myself. I feel this way. Oh, I'm noticing I'm feeling anxious, right? I'm not going to let my anxiety get to a 10. I'm feeling anxious at a 4. What can I put in place now? What can I try to do right now to keep me in a level place? Melvin, remembering that time with mentees is a subtraction for my sons, right? How do I spend time with them? How do I find that balance without feeling guilty about it? One of the things that I always tell people who are working in this field, human service field, sometimes, and this is just an honest conversation that I'm having with you all, sometimes, we are working to change the trajectory of families, and it's sometimes at the expense of our own. And so how do I make that commitment to my sons, to myself, that I, come first, and that my family comes first too. And, and that investing in them creates the type of family, the type of sons, the type of the emotions that I want to have, or that emotions that I want to show or share with them. And then I'm able then to give something back to someone else. And Christina's talking about, yes, that emotional safety plan. When I notice that I'm feeling a certain way, what is my plan of action? And so that emotional safety plan literally becomes my change plan, right? So when I notice that I feel a certain way, when I notice that I'm doing certain behaviors, how do I start to stop myself in the middle of those behaviors before they go too far? Now, the reality of it is that sometimes you're not going to catch yourself, right? And I just liken that to falling out of an airplane and your parachute won't open. You'll hit the ground soon enough. So, just try again tomorrow, try again in 10 minutes, try again in 2 hours. And so when that happens, we have to be willing, okay, you know what? This is a new change for me, which is why that permission to be compassionate with ourselves is so critical and so important. And so, when I'm noticing that, then how do I move forward without holding on to that guilt and understanding that change is a process? It's not perfection. You're not going to get it done. We're always going to be finding something new to add to our lives. And we want to welcome that newness and those additions with excitement. We don't necessarily have to keep welcoming them with guilt or anxiety or feeling like we should have done something different. We don't have to do that. So we are almost out of time. So I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. If you have any other comments that you want to add, or anything that wasn't explained, please feel free to do so. But just to kind of recap for this evening, when we think about changing family traditions or acknowledging how we want to see ourselves differently, and Maurice, we'll end with your question. How do you make the leap to start living your life on purpose, or how do I move forward without holding on to the guilt? I think those questions we can merge them beautifully together. It goes back to mindset, right? And so if I know that I feel guilty about something, my mindset is one where I still feel like I'm not worthy of what I deserve, really. And so when we think about that, one of the things that we have to say is that I'm willing to be with myself in the present moment. I'm willing to challenge and change my mindset and my way of thinking about it. When Maurice is talking about living my life on purpose, what that really means is I'm living my life in the present moment. I'm living my life not in the past, not in the future. I'm living my life in the present moment, which means I'm giving myself permission to feel this way, to acknowledge why I'm feeling this way, and to do something differently when I feel this way. I don't have to hold on to these negative or unhealthy emotions, or emotions that are self-sabotaging or cause me to self-sabotage. If I don't want to, I don't have to hold on to them. And so when we think about releasing guilt, the first step of releasing guilt is acknowledging or saying to ourselves, I deserve to feel happy. I deserve to feel worthy, right? And not, I don't need to feel guilty, because that just adds to more guilty thoughts. I literally want to go opposite thought and think about, I deserve to feel better about how it is I'm feeling. So I want to again thank you all so much for tuning in. This is the best hour that I have on Facebook. So, I mean, other than talking about my children throwing shade, but thank you all so much for tuning in. Like our page, I have a Dr. Tara page that is going to be awesome and wonderful. We are, like I said, if you haven't left your email, please feel free to leave it in the comments or send me a DM. We are working on our spring calendar. I would love to keep you all connected with what we're doing. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's live, please share it or tell someone about it. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you soon. Peace.